The Where Our Minds Wander podcast may contain sensitive content and explicit language. Listener discretion is advised. Greetings, fellow wanderers, to the places our minds wander.
The house at the end of the dirt road, where disembodied voices whisper and strange sounds make the living shiver.
Where shadows lurk at the edge of the woods, just outside your back door. And mysterious lights speed beyond reason across the clear night sky.
Odd events throughout time that lead you down the rabbit hole.
I'm Wes.
And I'm Beth.
And this is Where Our Minds Wander. Hello and welcome to Where Our Minds Wander, all you fellow wanderers. Thank you for joining us.
Hello, everyone.
Well, we hope you all had a great Halloween.
Yes, we do.
And we'd also like to say thank you to all of you fellow wanderers that sent your stories to us, because our episode listeners' stories wouldn't have been possible without all of you.
No, it would just be stories.
It would have just been our stories.
Right.
But they were awesome stories, and I went back and read some of them after again because they were that good.
Yeah. So thank you, everybody.
And we hope all you fellow wanderers out there that listened to the episode enjoyed them as much as we did.
Yeah. And speaking of enjoying, we didn't do much on Halloween because we don't have any trick-or-treaters that come by here. But we did go for a nice drive this weekend.
Yeah, it was definitely nice to get out and actually go down some back roads that I haven't been on in years. And boy, how some of them have changed. And others, well, not so much. And it's been a good 20 years since I've been down some of these roads.
Yeah, I saw some things I had never seen before.
Yeah, it was definitely fun.
Mm-hmm.
And for all of you fellow wanderers that have sent us fan mail, we'd just like to say that we cannot, for some reason, Buzzsprout doesn't allow it, but we cannot respond back to you. We just get your mail. So anything that you would like to ask us, anything that you have to say about the show, you can always email us at whereourmindswander@gmail.com.
And those we will respond to, absolutely.
Yeah, I don't understand the whole Buzzsprout thing, why they have fan mail when they know you can't respond back to it. It's kind of ridiculous, but that's out of our control. But like I said, just drop us an email.
Yeah, it makes us feel bad sometimes when we can't respond when we really would like to.
I know.
Just to say thank you, you know.
Because we like to respond back to all of our listeners.
Yeah.
And we definitely want to thank all of you that left comments on the episodes. It really helps us out a lot. And we truly appreciate it. And we try to respond back to those too. Or at least give a thumbs up or a heart so you know that we've seen them.
If you're getting a thumbs up or a heart emoji, just note that it's probably not from me.
Right. Well, I try to answer back when I can.
Right.
But, you know, it's hard kind of juggling all this social media. There's so much out there, so many places that we post to that it kind of gets a bit overwhelming at times.
It can be, yeah.
But our comments, we love those on Spotify and Apple. So keep them coming. And with that said, we've got a pretty good story for you all. And it's about the Beatles and cursed apartments.
It sure is.
And Beth's going to start us off.
Yeah, so this one was new to me. It was not something that I had ever heard of before, which happens once in a while. So the Beatles are still arguably one of the most famous bands in all of modern history. There isn't anything I can say about John, Paul, George, and Ringo that hasn't already been said by rock journalists, biographers, or filmmakers. Together and individually, they've been on the cover of Rolling Stone magazine over 30 times. 20 of their songs made it to the number 1 on the Billboard music charts, a record that no one else has ever broken, at least not yet. And they've sold over 600 million albums worldwide and 1.6 billion singles in the U.S. alone. The Beatles are legendary. No one can really dispute that. But it seems that when it comes to apartments, well, the Beatles are also linked to not 1, but 3 rental properties that have seen a lot of death and hauntings, and in one case, an alleged curse. During a 1968 press conference, the Beatles were asked who their favorite American band was. They had an immediate and unanimous answer: Harry Nilsson. Ironically, Nilsson has been referred to as the American Beatle. Nilsson was known for being a pioneer in vocal overdub experiments, and one of his most famous songs was Coconut, which you probably all know, of course. She put the lime in the coconut. It might ring a bell.
Well, perhaps so. I don't know if it's done like that. It would ring a bell, but I think you kind of came close, yeah.
She put the lime in the coconut. Everybody knows that song. Anyway, Nilsson, John Lennon, and Ringo Starr became really good friends. And in the 1970s, Nilsson and Lennon were both members of the Hollywood Vampires Drinking Club, which was founded by Alice Cooper.
My man. I love Alice Cooper.
My man.
I like Alice Cooper more than I do the Beatles.
Yeah. Has he had his... I don't know, is he as legendary as the Beatles? Alice Cooper?
Well,
probably.
In his own way, yes.
Yeah, he's like the Ozzy of...
I mean, I really like the Beatles. They were great. I mean, who can deny that? So many good songs. But Alice Cooper was just a showman.
My man.
Continue on.
The Hollywood Vampires Drinking Club was notorious for their drunken antics, and all you had to do to become a member was outdrink the existing members. Besides Cooper, Lennon, and Nilsson, the club included Keith Moon, Ringo Starr, and Mickey Dolenz of the Monkees. Iggy Pop and Brian Wilson were honorary members. Okay. So, Nilsson happened to own an apartment, or flat, in a black brick Georgian house in Mayfair, London, that was built in the 1750s. His apartment was number 12, and since it was on the 4th floor, it had an amazing view of Big Ben. It was close to Apple Records, the Playboy Club, and The Tramp, the bar where the Hollywood vampires liked to hang out. When he bought the apartment in 1972, Nilsson hired the ROR Design Company, which was owned by Ringo Starr and designer Robin Cruikshank. According to Flashback.com, Robin turned the interior into an amazing space filled with glass, chrome, and velvet. The bathroom featured 2 massive etched mirrors. In one, there was a huge oak tree, and in the other, a hangman's noose. Some sources say that Nilsson loved the mirrors, while others say he was freaked out by the noose etching and asked for it to be replaced. When he was in town, Nilsson, Ringo Starr, and Keith Moon would meet up in the afternoon at the apartment, drink brandy until 9 p.m., and then go to the Tramp until closing. But due to his career, Nilsson wasn't in London very often in 1974, and rather than let his amazing apartment sit empty, he would offer it up to his friends so they had a place to stay. And in July that year, Cass Elliot, otherwise known as Mama Cass from the Mamas and the Papas, needed a place to crash while she did a 2-week solo stint at the London Palladium. Despite rave reviews, the papers always mentioned her weight, saying things like, quote, "Although she is a large lady, Miss Elliot does a thin girl's act." Or, quote, "Although Mama Cass Elliot is considerably lighter than when she was last in Britain, by 80 pounds to be exact, she got a little breathless during the song and dance routines." End quote. At the time, Elliot was trying to distance herself from the Mamas and the Papas, and the constant scrutiny of her weight was getting to her. But she was part of a pretty impressive lineup at the Palladium, including Frankie Vaughan and Debbie Reynolds. Elliot's fans adored her, and her nightly shows were sold out completely night after night. Before the end of her last show, she used lipstick to leave a note on her dressing room mirror for Debbie Reynolds, which read, quote, "Dear Debbie, if they are half as nice to you as they were to me, you will have a great time." End quote. And then she partied for 48 hours straight. First, it was Mick Jagger's birthday party, where cocaine was king. Debbie Reynolds made the mistake of stopping by with her kids, Todd and Carrie Fisher, where she was warned not to let them go upstairs where the major debauchery was taking place. Elliot stayed at the party until dawn, when she next went to a breakfast lunch hosted by singer Georgia Brown. She was there for a while before heading to a cocktail party where celebrities like actor Alan Bates were hanging out. Elliot held out until 8 p.m., but she decided she better head back to apartment 12 and get some sleep. When she walked in the door, she called Michelle Phillips, her former bandmate, and happily told her that she was finally becoming her own person, that she was finally breaking away from being Mama Cass. She sipped champagne, made herself a sandwich, and laid down. The following morning, Elliot's secretary, Dot McLeod, and one of Elliot's backup singers, Joe Croyle, let themselves into the apartment. Neither of them wanted to wake Elliot because they knew she needed her rest. So they did their thing and just hung out, waiting for the singer to emerge from her bedroom. When Elliot still hadn't come out by 7 p.m., a worried McLeod went in to check on her. Now, to be absolutely clear, Cass Elliot did not die from choking on a ham sandwich. The truth is that she never even touched the sandwich that she had put next to her bed. The truth is she died of natural causes, a heart attack. But because she was only 32 years old and the first doctor on scene had speculated about the sandwich being a choking hazard, the press ran with the story and it has become legend. Later, during the official autopsy, it was believed that the many crash diets that Elliot had put her body through had weakened her heart. Nilsson was completely distraught over his friend's death. And so, 4 years later, when his good friend and fellow Hollywood vampire drinking buddy, Keith Moon, asked to stay in the apartment, Nielsen initially said no. Nielsen totally believed that the apartment was cursed. And since Keith Moon's drinking and drug use was now out of control, the last thing Nielsen wanted was for another friend of his to die in his apartment. But when Pete Townsend, Keith Moon's bandmate in The Who, stepped in and told Nielsen that lightning never strikes the same place twice, Nielsen gave in.
Well, that wasn't good advice.
No, not at all. And it seemed like Moon wanted to get better. He had been taking prescription heminevrin for some time. It's a sedative that actually quelled his alcohol cravings. But according to loudersound.com, it also made him forgetful and kind of docile. So on September 6th, Moon told his girlfriend, Annette Walter Lax, that he really wasn't in the mood to go to Paul McCartney's party at the Peppermint Park Club to celebrate what would have been Buddy Holly's 42nd birthday, and the fact that McCartney had acquired the rights to Holly's songs. But she insisted that they go. Moon gave in, and the two went to the club. Moon actually didn't drink very much at all. Witnesses said perhaps just a couple glasses of champagne, but he did do some cocaine. Mostly he sat in a booth with Paul McCartney, David Frost, Kenny Jones, and actor John Hurt, and he was kind of quieter than usual. At midnight, they all left the club together and went to a screening of the Buddy Holly biopic at the Odeon Theater in Leicester Square. Moon and Walter Lax left after just an hour because Moon said he didn't want to sit through anymore, and the couple took a taxi back to the apartment. When they got back, Moon told Walter Lax that he was hungry, so she made him a couple lamb cutlets, and then the two of them crawled into the same bed Mama Cass had passed away in and started watching the horror movie, The Abominable Dr. Phoebes. So I just have to pause for a second. I find it weird that Harry Nilsson kept the bed that Mama Cass died in.
Well, I guess he didn't want to purchase another one.
And now that's the bed they're getting into.
Yeah.
Like, it just seems weird to me.
It's kind of strange.
Anyway, Moon downed several heminevrin tablets and fell asleep around 4 a.m. At 7:30 a.m., Moon woke up, saying he was hungry again, and ordered Walter Lax to make him a steak breakfast. When she complained, Moon replied, quote, "If you don't like it, you can F off." These were the last words that he ever said to her. He took more pills and fell back asleep, snoring horribly. Walter Lax couldn't sleep, so she went out to the living room and crashed on the couch until 3:40 p.m. When she went back into the bedroom to wake Moon up, she realized that he was gone. The autopsy revealed 26 undissolved heminevrin tablets in his stomach. The irony, of course, is that lightning had struck the same place twice.
Well, here's the thing I'm seeing so far. They all sleep late.
Is that what you think it is? Staying up all night, partying, and then sleeping during the day?
That's it.
Yeah. Has nothing to do with putting your body through hell and then,
Look at Keith Richards.
Well, that's true. But he's an anomaly. I mean, come on.
He really is. He's pickled.
So at this point, Nilsson didn't want anything else to do with the apartment, and he immediately put it up for sale. Who guitarist Pete Townsend bought it, which may seem rather morbid to buy the apartment that your bandmate died in, but he said he did it because he didn't want the place to become a morbid tourist attraction for years to come.
That does make a lot of sense.
It does. Those who say the apartment is cursed point out that Mama Cass died while trying to conquer her food addiction, and Keith Moon died there while trying to conquer his addiction to alcohol. Maybe something about the apartment didn't want them to succeed. Or maybe they were just both celebrities with major addictions who had relied on a good friend for a place to live, and their bodies had just had enough. But then again, I didn't mention that Keith Moon was the same age as Mama Cass when he died, 32. So the tie between Nilsson's apartment in London and the Beatles, to be fair, might seem a little loose. But there's another apartment building that's forever tied to the Beatles in New York City that's said to be haunted by John Lennon himself. And that's the Dakota, of course. And Wes will get into that after this break. Hey, did you know? Idioms are sayings that people use all the time to represent a situation. But have you ever wondered where those sayings come from? Well, wonder no more.
Pay through the nose. I got the bedspread I wanted, but I had to pay through the nose.
This idiom comes from the 9th century, when Danes in Ireland imposed taxes. When a person couldn't pay, their punishment was to have their noses cut, thereby paying their debt through the nose.
Spill the beans. We tried to keep the party a surprise, but then Sally had to go and spill the beans.
This idiom comes from ancient Greece, when men cast their votes by using black or white beans. If the beans were accidentally spilled, the outcome was prematurely revealed to everyone.
And lastly, hands down. I'm the best at Uno. I always win hands down.
We can thank 19th century horse racing and jockeys for this one, who would relax their hands and lower their reins when they had a huge lead over the other horses. Who'da thunk it?
All right, we are back from the break, and let's pick up where Beth left off. The Dakota Building at 1 West 72nd Street in New York City first opened in 1885. Conceived by Edward S. Clark, the founder of the Singing Sewing Machine Company, the Dakota was meant to be a co-op for the city's elite. Clark hired architect Henry Janeway Hardenberg to make his vision a reality, and Hardenberg didn't disappoint. The 16 apartments in the Dakota featured 14-foot-high ceilings, mahogany and oak inlaid floors, private courtyards, and elevators. No two apartments were alike. Some had only 4 rooms, while others had as many as 20. There were servant quarters within the building and a large communal dining room that was meant to host lavish dinner parties. The state-of-the-art kitchens served delicious food that could be sent up to each individual apartment by dumbwaiter. If residents wanted to, they could play tennis in the private tennis courts or croquet on the lawn that was designed specifically for that purpose. Their carriages and horses were kept in the multi-story Dakota stables. 2 things happened before the Dakota Building was ever finished. First, Clark died, and second, all 16 apartments were already spoken for. After his death, the Clark family continued to manage the building for 80 years. In 1961, the residents of the building pooled their money together and bought the building, turning it into a housing cooperative. But the Dakota was, and still is, a building for the elite. Celebrities like Lauren Bacall, Boris Karloff, and Judy Garland have lived there. Composer Leonard Bernstein lived there until his death in 1990. Joe Namath and John Madden, Paul Simon and Gilda Radner all lived there. And in 1973, John Lennon and Yoko Ono moved in. But they didn't just live in one of the 7th floor apartments. They bought 2 of them. The Dakota has had a haunted reputation for years. According to the LittleHouseOfHorrors.com, there's ghosts of both a little girl and a boy who are seen in 19th century clothing. There's also an alleged poltergeist in the basement, and even the apparition of the building's visionary, Edward Clark, is said to haunt it. According to NewYorkGhosts.com, the Dakota's haunted reputation was so well known that it was the inspiration for the Bramford apartment building in the 1969 horror film Rosemary's Baby. In fact, several of the exterior shots of the building in the film are actually the Dakota. When John Lennon lived there, he claimed to have seen a ghost for himself numerous times. He referred to her as the crying lady ghost, although he never knew who she might have been in life. The legend began that the crying lady ghost was the grief-stricken apparition of a woman who lost her child in a tragic accident in the early 1900s. She allegedly wanders the halls searching for her missing child, and John Lennon apparently saw her on more than one occasion. He also claimed to have seen a UFO from the apartment's windows. Now, this was during Lennon's infamous Lost Weekend period, when he and Yoko Ono separated for 18 months, and Lennon was dating their former assistant, May Pang. According to the BeatlesStory.com, Pang and Lennon were living in the Dakota's penthouse. It was August 23, 1974, and Lennon had gone out to the balcony, naked, to smoke a cigarette. As he stood there, he noticed some odd lights flashing in the sky around him. When he turned to get a better look, Lennon saw a dark but silent circular object flying over that was ringed with pulsating white lights and had a single red light on top. Shocked at what he was seeing, Lennon shouted out to May to come out and look. She later said that it was so low in the sky that it barely cleared the rooftops, and it was traveling very slowly. It turned and headed down the river, hovering over a building for several minutes, and then floated off towards Brooklyn, where it paused again over the bridge before flying straight upwards into the sky. Now, the kicker is that when Lennon and May called the police, they were told they weren't the only ones to make a similar call that night. Lennon noted the encounter on the sleeve of his album, Walls and Bridges, by writing, quote, "On 23rd August 1974 at 9 o'clock, I saw a UFO," end quote.
That's kind of cool.
It's very cool.
And you know it wasn't substance fueled if there were a bunch of other people that called in and said they saw it too.
Right. At least he had a shared experience with, seems like, multiple other witnesses.
Right.
So it does bring some validity to this story.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I'm sure many of you know about the murder of John Lennon that happened under the main archway of the Dakota in 1980. But basically, Lennon and Ono were returning to their home from the record plant recording studio. When the couple stepped out of their limo and approached the front door to the building, Lennon was fatally shot 4 times. Now, what you may not know is that for a period of time after his death, people claimed that they saw his ghost also. At first, it was other residents, 1 man and 1 woman, who claimed they both saw Lennon's apparition in 1983. He was leaning against the archway, surrounded by a strange glow. They wanted to approach him and talk to him, but something about the expression on his face made them stop from doing so. But then Yoko Ono herself claimed that she saw her late husband's ghost several times in their apartment, including one time when she saw him sitting at his piano. When he saw her, he allegedly spoke to her, saying, "Don't be afraid, I am still with you." Ono continued to live in the apartment until 2023. People sometimes wonder why she would continue to live in the place where her husband was killed. But I guess that you could speculate that she still felt his presence there, so she stayed for that reason. She still owns the apartment, and her son Sean sometimes stays there when he's in the city. Now, Beth had mentioned before that Pete Townsend bought Flat 12 in London after Keith Moon's death because he didn't want the building to turn into a tourist stop. Well, that's exactly what happened to Lennon's former flat in Liverpool, where he lived with his first wife, Cynthia. The Beatles manager, Brian Epstein, owned the flat, and Lennon and Cynthia lived there after they were first married. The building is often visited by Beatles fans even to this day, although all they can really do is stand on Faulkner Street and look at it from the outside. But it's the third building tied to the Beatles that has joined the cursed apartment list. According to the Guardian newspaper, neighboring residents of the building were told to evacuate their homes around 7:30 p.m. in 2017 due to a potential gas leak. The Lennon building was surrounded by ambulances, police, and fire trucks, and residents all down the street were told to remain inside with their windows closed. A 30-year-old man who lived in the flat with his wife and 2 young children was transported to the hospital because he was ill, I would assume from the gas leak. Residents were finally allowed back inside their houses around 11 p.m. But what they didn't realize until the following morning was that inside Lennon's former flat was a grisly scene. The wife and both children had been murdered. The husband was later arrested for the crimes. So, frankly, whether you consider the building to be part of any kind of curse is totally up to you. But when you have a band as legendary as the Beatles, there are bound to be dark stories and conspiracy theories to go along with the success and worldwide recognition. Perhaps, maybe it's all part of having that kind of fame, especially when they were connected with so many other famous people who dealt with addictions. Or maybe there is some sort of curse that goes with that kind of success.
Interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, well, you gotta figure. They were all pretty young. They were all very wealthy at this point. And, they drank a lot. They did a lot of drugs. Your body can only handle so much. So, with that many people in a building doing drugs and alcohol and staying up as late as they did, 24 hours, 36 hours, 72 hours, I mean, you figure week after week, it's bound to happen.
Right.
It's, there could be a curse that goes along with it, but I think it's due to poor judgment.
Right. But, look at the Dakota. It was already haunted before John Lennon moved in.
Right.
So it's interesting that, they would say that his ghost has joined the ghosts there.
And perhaps it has. We have no real way of knowing.
No.
We can just go by the stories that people put out there and then try to look at them in an intelligent, logical way and see what fits and what doesn't.
Right.
But I'm not surprised if there are quite a few hauntings going on there and, perhaps he wanted to join in.
At least for a little while. Because it doesn't sound like people are seeing him there anymore. It was only the first few years after his death.
Right. Well, I imagine when some of these stories come out and hit the magazines and, your National Enquirers, things like that, that people all of a sudden want to be part of it and start making up stories also.
Right. It's possible.
Yeah. Anything's possible. Not saying that's what's going on, but you know how people tend to get on the bandwagon and want to be part of the history also.
Right. Well, I was only 5 when John Lennon was killed, and even I remember it.
Oh, I remember it.
Well, you weren't 5.
No, I wasn't.
You were a teenager.
Let's not go there.
But
It sounds filthy.
But I'm saying, well, yeah, when you think of it that way. But my point is, I was only 5,
Right.
and I remember it.
Yeah.
I remember it being a huge...
Well, it was a big day.
It was a horrible thing,
Right.
you know.
It was like when Elvis died. I remember that also. People freaking out.
Right.
Well, there you have it.
Yes.
The Dakota and its hauntings.
And the Mayfair Flat 12.
Yeah. It's all so interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Well, even if it wasn't haunted, there was so much cool stuff that took place inside this place's walls that in itself is just phenomenal when you think about it.
Both of them.
Yeah.
One in London and the one in New York.
Yeah.
Well, everybody, as always, if you would like to know more, you can check out our sources in our show notes. There was more, of course, about Mom and Cass and Keith Moon, if you're interested, and more about the hauntings at the Dakota.
Well, I think that about wraps it up. Join us again next week for an all-new episode of Where Our Minds Wander.
See you soon. Thank you for joining us. We look forward to traveling with you again to the places where our minds wander.
If you like what you heard, please take a moment and provide us with a 5-star rating and a comment on your favorite listening platform. It really helps us move up the list and become more visible on the podcast charts so new people can find us.
And thank you all for your continued support.
See you next week for an all-new episode.